readjustment. I'm working with very low budget here, so, you know, figured I might as well get these videos out one way or another. Sorry about the hair, sorry about the beard. I look very unkempt because I got out of the shower, had to rush make dinner, whatever. You saw the title of the video. I have been ruminating, contemplating, thinking about microtransactions, loot boxes, and stuff like that as a whole. Particularly what set this off is whether or not you agree with Jim Sterling, his style of video, whatever. I don't really care. I like watching his stuff because of him having a different perspective than me. A lot of the stuff I don't agree with, a lot of the stuff I do. But it's undeniable that he's helped with certain things, but that's not what we're here to talk about. He brought up a point about PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds today and how they've added loot boxes to the game. Now, let me preface this by saying I am not against loot boxes in general. I have a less hardline stance on them. Loot boxes, to an extent, let me rephrase that, to an extent, I don't mind cosmetic items being in loot boxes. I played Magic the Gathering for forever. I kind of get the whole card pack mentality. It makes sense. But it does feel like a way to cheapen the game when you have such low drop percentages, sort of like Overwatch has extremely low drop percentages, as well as, I don't know, Lawbreakers seems to have less of a low drop percentage, but at the same time, I can go 3 or 4 boxes just getting little stickers and no skins, and I want the skins. And you can argue, well, it's just cosmetic, it's only what you make of it. Yeah, that's true to an extent, but at the same time, you want those cosmetic items. I want those cosmetic items. The devs have made it so you do want those cosmetics items. And why do they try so hard to convince us that they're not essential to the game? Because they don't want people to feel like they're getting ripped off. But the truth is they are essential to the game. And it's a little bit different than Magic the Gathering, because with Magic the Gathering, you can go out and buy that specific thing. It's not like and it's not like you can get it through technically earnable in-game currency with something like Overwatch or Lawbreakers, like you could in an MMO, or at least a well-constructed MMO. In an well-constructed MMO, you can go out, you can farm gold, you can do whatever you need to trade up for the other currency till you can eventually earn it. You know, that's a time sink, but the devs are essentially selling you a faster way to get to it in that game if they have microtransactions, which again, I'm not technically against. I don't like them. They feel sleazy. I've been gaming since I was born, like I said in the last video, which is kind of an exaggeration, but maybe not. But in the end, the problem is that microtransactions do feel like a way to cheapen the game, especially with the way that, with that and DLC, especially exclusive DLC that are part of pre-orders and all that. But to get back to the issue at hand, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds has added an extremely low drop rate set of loot boxes as a way to fund their own prize pool for a PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds tournament. Like, to get an entire set of armor, you need 4 different things, and I think it's like a 0.06% chance that you'll get it. Like, you have to open like 1,000 boxes or something ridiculous. Somebody did it, the math on Reddit. The point is that very low chance that you'll get what is in that loot box, and it costs real world money. It's no longer you can just open them with the in-game currency. These cost like Valve's boxes, which again I really have a problem with, because again, that's more akin to gambling when you have to pay $2.50 for the chance of getting a skin. And you can say, well, we can get it on the aftermarket. Yes, but at the same time, are you really going to pay $4,000 for the really cool skin you want? And then you sort of feel let down. I mean, I've got friends that have sunk tons of money into that game and nothing to show for it. My point being is that loot boxes are not an inherently bad thing. They're not. Boss Key Studios is using it in Lawbreakers, like I said, and to me, that's a really good way to support a dev who's done everything. They are communicating with their community. They are releasing patch notes as soon as they can, as well as little updates from the dev. Excuse me, my nose is itching. Little updates saying, hey, this is what we're doing. Cool, awesome, communication with the fans. They sold a multiplayer-only game for $30 instead of $60, so I got a leg up on Overwatch in my opinion. It's part of the reason I never got into Overwatch, even though I love the beta. I didn't have $60 to drop on it, and now people are too good. I mean, that's the honest truth. They are too good. They are too good for me. Get good, scrub. No, thank you. But I don't mind supporting small end devs like that, and then you've got people like, but then you know you've got the same argument with people like Yacht Club Games, who yes are selling DLC. They are, God dang it, my nose. They are selling DLC, but if you bought the game originally, you get all the DLC for free for eternity. And each one of the DLCs is at least 2/3 of the game that Shovel Knight was. You've got the Plague Knight, Spectre Knight, you're going to get King's Knight. You know, they'll probably go through them all, seeing how they're just riding off the success and constructing very well-made games in the process. So loot boxes, all that to say, loot boxes are not inherently a bad thing, but what PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds is doing is really hard to justify, especially when it's in early access. It's kind of like Ark Survival Evolved. Don't release an expansion pack for a game that's not technically finished. It's kind of the problem I have with these early access games. Not only do they look crappy, you can sit there and argue with me till you're blue in the face. That's fine. You like the way the game looks, that's fine. But sorry, Arma wasn't a good looking game in the first place. PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds doesn't look that great. It's still playable. I don't need great graphics. But when I hear early access, I think beta. I think things are going to get better in the end. And there's usually not a whole lot. They add things. They're adding maps. They've added modes. They've added a ton of stuff to PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, so they are doing a lot right. But, I mean, people pointed it out before. You're paying $30 to beta test their game for them. Something they would normally pay you for. Are you having fun? Great. Then the $30 was worth it. In my opinion, it's worth it. But, that being said, you paid $30 with the mindset that you are going to get a full game at some point. And when they start adding things like this, it seems like they're diverting resources away from getting your full game out. Will it eventually come out? Yes. I'm very pessimistic about other games, such as, Star Citizen. I don't believe that game will ever fully release, but you know what? It probably will, but, that's just my cynicism talking. I just feel like PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds is in a very odd position. It's not like it launched with loot boxes, or it did for, like, the cosmetic items, and that's fine, but it didn't launch with a pay feature. And that's sort of the difference between that and CSGO, and then Overwatch and Lawbreakers. Overwatch has a very low drop rate, but you know what? You're willing to put in the time? That's fine. And all the devs are selling you is essentially a time speed up. And if your time is more worth it to you than to wait around and not pay anything, great. There's that kid that was a professional Hearthstone player who built his entire winning deck out of cards that he got out of packs without ever paying a dime. Good for him. It's not the general case. A lot of people don't have that kind of time, and it feels like you're shortchanging those who don't have time, or are not, as the industry calls them, a whale, to be able to sit there and pour $100 into the game every couple of weeks just to get the skins that they want, and then, you can never get the skin again. And I understand creating a sense of urgency and creating a player base for everything. Extra Credits is a great channel who explained that you want to, like in MMOs, create a customer base for 100% of your product, because if you're selling an archer bow and 10% of your players are playing with that bow or playing as an archer, then only 10% of your players are going to want the bow. So you've just had a lot of resources put into building something that only 10% of people are going to buy. But then if it's random, great. Everybody gets a chance. Everybody gets a shot. And these are all workable. Like I said, these are all just minor nitpicks in the bigger scheme of things. It feels sleazy, but $250 is not that big of a deal. It's not... To bring it all to the other part of the video title, if you've read the whole thing, if it didn't get cut off, Shadow of War has added loot boxes. It's been a big topic of discussion. Jimquisition has covered it over and over and over and over and over again. And repeatedly said that, Shadow of War, how he says it, is yada yada this, yada yada that. I agree. Shadow of War is doing the sleaziest kind of loot box you can. The main goal of the game is to be able to build up your orc army. And you could say, oh, well, like the other games, they're selling you a time saver, because what do you get in the loot boxes but orcs? Great. The main mechanic of the game is being sold to you like that. And it's just let me rephrase. Shadow of War is selling you the main component of the game as a time saver, which means that the main component for people who cannot afford to pay more after they've already sunk $60 into a game, or do not have the time to waste into it, so they sunk $60 into it and then don't have the extra time to waste, because I promise you, the devs have made it harder to get the orcs that you want, because why would they have resources put into microtransactions or loot boxes and microtransactions that they don't intend on you buying, that there's no incentive to buy? It makes no sense. They can sit there and claim, you don't need to buy these all you want. No. You don't need to buy these. No. You may not need to buy them, but they're making it so you want to buy them. Fine. But be upfront and honest about it. Say, look, we made it so that it takes a lot longer. You're going to want to buy these. That way I can invest. I know what my investment's going to be. I don't feel blindsided by it, because I'm in the top maybe 10% of gamers that are in the know about this kind of stuff. Not everybody follows IGN, Kotaku, Game Informer, like I do. Not everybody follows all these gaming news outlets. As such, there is a huge disconnect, and a lot of people feel shortchanged. People felt shortchanged by EA when they had that all-access pass to the multiplayer where you had to pay $10 extra. People felt shortchanged by Game of the Year editions that didn't come with the DLC, even though I think it was on disc. And GameStop had to start putting things on there that said does not come with DLC, which I'll make a whole other video about DLC and season passes and how I feel on those. In general, I'm okay with them if they're done right. Kind of a general theme with me, huh? But all that to say that I'm a very well-informed gamer, not to disparage anyone else. Not everybody has the time to put into it like I do, nor are they as passionate. So, duh. The fact that people aren't as informed as me is kind of obvious and should be well known by developers. And instead of trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes, not a Pubg reference, sorry for the sidetrack, but they just announced a limited edition today, and I find that hilarious. Not to pull the woolies over everybody's eyes, they need to be upfront and honest with their customers about what they're getting. There are far, far, far too many people who don't know what they're getting into. They see a game, they expect $60 to be able to pay for it and get the full experience. And you can say, oh, games haven't risen with inflation, or game prices haven't risen with inflation. That's fine, that's understandable. But you have Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice coming out for $30. That's an 8 to 10 hour game that looks phenomenal. I mean, yeah, it wasn't a physical disc, but I promise you there's not $30 in materials in there. The developers are still making a good chunk of change. And if you're like Capcom and you sink so much into it that your games have to sell at least 1 million copies to be considered successful, maybe you change your business model. Maybe you don't spend as much on certain things. Maybe you figure out what's not working. Because back in the day, everybody says, oh, games only cost $60. I actually remember, and we've never risen the prices. I actually remember paying $50 for most games, and then I look back in a bunch of magazines, and you're paying $75 for a sports game, $80 for sports games. Yeah, games have gone down, and quality has gone up. But at the same time, you never hear anybody complaining about movies not rising in price. Ticket prices have risen because it takes more to run things. But movies in general have stayed kind of the same, at least with DVDs. $15 to $20 was the going average when I was a kid, and it's still the going average for a brand new movie when it comes out. So that argument's kind of a moot point. all this to say is that if any developers that by any chance watch this, listen, we don't mind supporting you. We understand that games cost a lot, most of us. But at the same time, you have to earn our trust. Not only that, you have to show us good faith that you're not intentionally trying to screw us over, which is what most microtransactions, such as Dead Space 3's the whole crafting system microtransactions, or DLC that's on disc, such as Street Fighter Cross Tekken, or any loot boxes that weren't there before that are hastily shoved in, or you've got everything behind a paywall and you advertise it as free to play when you really are not getting the full experience, or you're taking our time from us. Time is very short and very precious on this earth, and you can say, well, you're rambling about something on the internet. Yes, that is true. And you can say I'm wasting my time. Other people say I might be using my time wisely. In the big scheme of things, there's a hurricane going on right now, and the world seems to be in chaos. So is this a big deal? No. But sometimes you just got to complain about the little things and talk about them. And this is something that's been weighing on my mind. So any developers out there, please listen. We don't mind DLC. We don't mind microtransactions. We don't mind loot boxes. But please, call it what it is. Be upfront and honest with your customers. Let them know that their investment is going to be more. We appreciate honesty as much as we do a cheaper experience. And if your game doesn't need it, don't put it in there. I'm sure there's some market research out there that could show you that that would be the smartest idea. But I think I've rambled on long enough. This is me signing out. Goodbye. See you next time. I still don't know how to sign these off, so let's see if I can shut this off without shaking the camera too much. See you next video.